on. Hello everyone, I'm very happy to be back. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Anastasiya Stepanova. She was born in Uzbekistan, traveled kind of the whole world, studied in New Zealand, and then moved to Moscow to study journalism. But there was a guiding force across her life, which is still guiding her plans and her actions, which is to fly to space. She's a journalist and engineer. He's an analog astronaut, member of the Mars Society. She was a member of the Mars 160 mission, member of Project Sirius as well. And she recently just finished an experiment. She was an experiment subject of a dry immersion, first ever female subject for this kind of experiment. We have a very interesting show for you today. We hope you enjoy this conversation with Anastasiya Stepanova. Hello, how are you?
Hi, good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm really excited to talk about space in general, because I think that a multiplanetary situation is obviously the way to go. I want to start this, by the way, with saying this. I always laugh hysterically at movies about space, not due to their lack of realism, but there's always like a central plot that is wrong, which is the fact that, for example, aliens will come here for resources, A, or B, that we are one day are going to run out of resources. If you know one thing about the solar system, is that the solar system is packed with resources, and there are so many opportunities of things that we can obtain from nearby asteroids and other planets, etc. That's why for people like you and me, of course, it's obvious that we should migrate towards a situation in which we become a multiplanetary species. But maybe for some people this is not so clear, and you always get this boring answer when you start talking about space, like, Sachem, why? Why should we do this? What's important? So, well, I guess I would like to hear a little bit about a person like you, in the sense, how do you build this? What drove you to this life path? And was it something that came from your house, or it was inspired by a specific episode, something that happened to you, or how did you all of a sudden decided to go to space? That's kind of like a difficult goal.
Yeah, well, I think it's important what happens in your childhood. So my dad showed me all the science fiction books. If you know Russian authors, Strugatsky brothers, they have amazing science fiction. It's really anti-utopian, but maybe you've heard of Solaris.
Yes, of course.
Or The Picnic at the Roadside, which is kind of part of Stalker. So they had really interesting worlds out there. Apart from this, other writers, of course, Wells, Bradbury. And so I was reading about that, also reading astronomy, about the planets, that, for example, on Jupiter, the density of the planet is less than water.
Yeah. And
I was like, as a kid, how it's possible? The whole planet, you just step in there and you dive. And I was like, wow. So if we have a creatures there that has less density, maybe they can walk on that. And, your imagination starts to play with different scenarios. And I was thinking, okay, in 20 years, when I'm much older, definitely we will have base on the moon and on Mars, and it will be so fun. And then I grew up and nothing happened. Unfortunately, the progress that we had in 50s, 60s, then it froze. And for 50 years, we're just doing the same thing almost. So at that moment was the situation with space, especially in Russia, because of 90s, was not it was difficult. So I was thinking, okay, space is so hard. Also, the industry is kind of in the trouble now, and I couldn't believe that I have a chance. So I decided to. I also was interested in journalism, because if you're a good journalist, you have to prepare for each interview and actually get to know the different topics. So
sure.
And so it means you always study, you always explore. And I decided to try this. And after a year, I found out that we have a space journalism, and it's been taught by cosmonaut, like real cosmonaut. I was like, whoa. And I never met before a cosmonaut. And I was like, how it's possible, journalism and space? Even here, space found me. So I started to go there, and we spent 4 years together. We wrote a book also with 2 other students, because back at that time, it was in 2006 when I started the course. We didn't have a proper literature about space. Like it was everything was in like Soviet times, and nothing more than for kids, for high school kids. So there was an idea to actually all the articles that we write as educational articles about space, let's do it as a book.
Yep.
And finally, in 2010, we got it published, and it's really great. I mean, I wouldn't even thought of that. So, and I had my diploma work. It was for the first time in history of Faculty of Journalism in Moscow State University that the topic was space journalism.
Yep.
And first when people heard this, they were laughing at me. They're like, what?
Why?
There is a space journalism? They couldn't understand what is space journalism. They thought, oh, are you writing about aliens? And,
Area
for
51
them yeah, for them it was not serious. It was like astrology, I don't know. So it just to show that in 2010, things about space were not trendy at all, and people didn't really understand it and look at me as I'm a freak. So after that, I was like, okay, it's time to earn money, and started to work as PR manager for gadget company. But all this time, like I was thinking that actually I'm not living my life, and I need to follow my heart. And time passes fast, and for me to imagine that till the end you will live like that, it's crazy, and it's the scariest thing. And I don't know, maybe it's like a coincidence, or when people say you need to read the signs from life or something like that. I heard on TV, like my dad was calling me like, hey, Anastasia, come here on news. They say about Mars One project. And I was like, what? And on news, there was thing that they said everyone can apply for a trip to Mars. And I was like, oh, it's a bullshit. Come on. It's so hard to be a cosmonaut and fly just to ISS. And here they say you will fly to Mars and you don't have to be a cosmonaut. And then I talked to my professor and cosmonaut, Baturin, and said, hey, there is a controversial project. What do you think? And he said, you should try. At least it's new and it's movement forward. So I tried and passed one round and then second. And that gave me more confidence that actually I might have a chance and I should, push harder. I can continue. You tell me.
We have all the time in the world, so I really want to hear your story. So carry on. Yeah, it's really great. It's really interesting. This will inspire others who have a similar dream to follow. So carry on. Yeah, please. So we're in the moment when you see Mars One and you're like, oh, wow, there may be an opportunity. And then you apply and you see that you progressed across the stages of it. And then what happens?
Yeah. Yes. And while you apply, there was a big PR thing, and journalists started to call me and ask me about all these also controversial questions because they say it's
Sorry, so you were like, so now I'm not such a freak, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
before you were all
no.
laughing about it, but now I'm not.
Well, no, actually, back then I was still a freak. Like journalists talk to me also as a freak because the Mars One program first they said that it's one-way trip.
Yeah, sure.
It doesn't mean that we will die, but like we're moving there. Like people in past moved to North America and never came back and didn't know maybe how to came back, right? So the same is here. And all the, of course, journalists were like, oh, they're crazy, or who applied because it means that if they want to move there, that their life's so miserable here on Earth, or they're running from something on Earth, and I was so naive back then, really naive, and because I've been taught to be a proper journalist, to be a journalist that considers feelings of the one you interviewed, and to have the investigation, fact check. But how journalists behaved with me was really not the best. And but it taught me, to be more like to think really what you tell them and how they can, put it upside down if they have their own view.
Can I ask you a question?
They didn't really ask me.
Can you ask you a question? Did you notice how, like, for example, a bad interview could harm your plans? I mean, because I have never been some sort of in the spotlight at that level, so I don't know what's really the effect of a bad journalist on your life. It's obvious that it will have a bad effect, but what kind of experiences you had? Like, oh man, this interview went really bad, and look at what happened. It really harmed this. Like, is it really so harming, or can you get away with it, kind of?
In my case, I could get away with this, but still, some people were like, if you meet someone and then they search about you on the internet, it pops out, and then they're like, "Oh, you're this.
You're the depressive person who wants to escape all your problems."
Yes,
and it's like, no.
Exactly, yeah. And or because you're not married, you want to go to Mars. I was like, oh my God, that's like really. It actually shows what our society thinks is normal, and all the stereotypes that for them, a young woman wants to go to Mars means she has a depression, she doesn't have a boyfriend, and life is miserable. That's what how they thought 5-6 years ago. Now it's different people, and I'm changing. Yes, finally. But back then, I had like a few not the best interviews because they didn't show me the final cut, and they put depressing music, and
damn.
My God, and I was so mad. I was mad, but.
I'm shocked because I understand if the topic is kind of like political and you have a political agenda behind the interview you're doing and you kind of want to generate effect, but why do you really need to add your feelings to a person that is going to space? I mean, is it to get more views or something? Do they get more views if it's dramatic? But they seem to not understand anything about the modern media. I mean, an interview like this, uncut, with any music, without any kind of editing, it just generates way much more interest than just a little soundbite that has some dramatic piano, doing two notes.
Yeah. And they also had the tragedy. Well, they were interviewing my parents, and after this, for me, I told you I was so naive and open. I was like, oh, okay, I can tell the world there is such opportunities and blah blah blah, and it's nothing bad in doing this. So I was like, yes, you can interview my parents. I mean, now I'm not allowing this,
of course.
But back then, my parents also, they never worked with journalists, so they were also honest. And of course, if you ask a mom, like, how would you let go your child forever to Mars? Of course, she says no. I mean, it's not the best idea. And so they had all this tragedy, and it's and I was like, oh my God, the whole interview was like really, but my dad said really good thing. He's like, Anastasia, what can you do now? Once gets into internet, it's there, and you can sue them or spend your time and money and everything. But I think the best option is to do great interviews where you show that you're professional and that you move on, you do useful things for science and for space. And since then, yes, I was. It was a good lesson.
Yeah.
So, but it showed me that, oh my God, I understand now why people don't like journalists. And I was one of them, and I never actually behaved like that professionally. But since then, I also was like, oh, why they are doing this? Why, in general, humanity, eats more information that is tragical, controversial, and has some, how we call it now, hype.
Look, there is a word in English language that is pretty powerful word. It's vicarious feeling. The vicarious feeling is the enjoyment you obtain from the suffering of others. And there seems to be, this kind of like, I would say sadistic, it's a pretty strong word, but there seems to be this kind of sadistic cycle, between the media and the audience. Like, maybe, I don't even want to go into the speculations of why something like this happens, because one could go to the place of where you say like this, the audience is suffering, so they want to see somebody suffering more than them so they can feel better about their lives. Or there is some sort of morbidity. For example, I have a pretty happy life and I'm really happy, but every time I see something shocking, I kind of pay attention to it. Like if you're on their feed and then you see like something gore, or some dead body or something, you're always like, wow, what's that? I mean, there is some sort of morbidity, interest to those things that are horrible, but it certainly creates a super huge distortion in between what's really going on and what is presented to the people. And it would be great if the media would just make a better job at portraying a picture of what the world is, especially in such a topic like space. It is such a shock to me that this topic is surrounded by all this woo, like they say, woo, like they say. It's like, man, we live in a solar system where the sun is 99.99% of the atoms of the whole solar system. And the whole thing is gigantic and vast, and it's there for us to explore. And I don't get it, and maybe you can tell me what are your thoughts about that. I don't get it why people see this as such a esoteric goal, as if you're trying to talk to the dead or something. And it's like, no, man, the majority of the solar system is the solar system. The vast minority of the solar system is the Earth. So why do you think there is this barrier between kind of like taking maybe this barrier has disappeared and it's a wrong impression. Talk us a little bit about this barrier, like you understand what I mean. Let's go to think about space, and then it's like, what kind of crack are you smoking or something? And it's like, no. I'm just interested in the exploration of the majority of the solar system, which is around me,
I think the barrier is still there. It's getting better, but it's due to the difficulty of this topic.
Sure.
Because most people, they want easy information. They don't want to think. And with astrophysics, with astronomy, you actually need to have a brain massage.
Exactly.
So, and that's why they don't want really to bother. But I remember that before, yes, they were looking at me like crazy. But now, for the last few years, when I meet my friends or a new company, they're like, Anastasia, please tell us the latest space news. It's so interesting.
Awesome.
So,
I guess that people like Elon Musk play a big role in the change of perception. Or maybe not. I don't know. Just carry on. Sorry.
No, it is. He did a great job in inspiring people and actually looking at him with respect and with jealousy, because before when he just I don't know if you read biography book by Ashley Vance about Elon. Yeah, it's a good read and it's not big. So when he came first to Russia to buy a rocket, like our Roscosmos officials, they were laughing at him. It's like, oh, this rich boy wants to buy a rocket.
Who's laughing now? Who's laughing now, huh?
Exactly. And I always remember when I have like my bad moments when not, the path doesn't go as I wanted. For example, like I didn't get to cosmonaut selection, and I remember the video from Elon Musk interview where journalists asked him, "How did you feel when Alan Stern, Buzz Aldrin were saying that what you're doing is useless, you wouldn't have any luck?" In the beginning they were saying
I didn't know that.
And that there won't be any success and etc. There was like really harsh words, and he almost cried, and he's like, it doesn't feel nice because you all your life you look at them and they inspire you, and then they put you down for what? For trying to bring space closer to the people. So that's really something. And I also face this situation for that when people put you down because you're actually doing science, you don't do any harm, you don't do good things like most of young people like to do, for example, and still they don't. Some of the people, especially if they're older, they don't understand how new formation of people can get to space because they think old-fashioned. They think that the cosmonauts should be from military field, men. No, they don't like women there, and without like outstanding individuality. So
and without outstanding individuality. That's interesting. Like a military person, just like automaton.
Yes, without social media, without publicity, without anything. And but they don't understand that the world changed, and now it doesn't work this way. And it's not only about getting to space, fixing something, and come back. You're actually one of the rarest person who gets there, and you have to inspire others and use it as maximum as you can. So I hope that this field will transform, and it won't stay as conservative as it stays now.
I think
Musk doing a lot for that.
Who is like Russia's Elon Musk? I mean, is there somebody in Russia who is putting a lot of money on this and inspiring people to do it? Like, I mean, can you talk us as much as you can about the Russian scene? I'm really interested in portraying as much as we can talk about what's going on in space here, not only from the military side and the Roscosmos side. So let's start by that. Who is Russian Elon Musk, and what he's doing, or she?
No, we don't have, unfortunately, Elon Musk.
End of the interview. Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm joking.
We had like Russian Elon Musk in the past, who sent first Gagarin and other missions. It's Korolev, but now it's hard because it's monopoly, and without government,
you cannot start a space operation here if you're an entrepreneur.
You can, but you need permission. To send something to space, and you need to get 1,000 of permissions. And if the policy of government is not biased, then maybe something can happen. But if it's actually ignoring, entrepreneurs, then it's very hard. So
sorry to interrupt you. To guide the question. In NASA gave very specific steps to incorporate the private industry in the space exploration. Roscosmos is not showing any signs of that?
Now they started, now. But still, it wouldn't be easy. And because, I was thinking about that. Okay, Russia has so many oligarchs. What the hell? They're spending money on yachts, soccer clubs. And I'm like, oh my God. When I saw how much they spend, I was like, wow, you could do so many cool things with space, with science here for Russian kids, And I don't know why they don't invest there. I mean, we have Yuri Milner who is working, but he's in States anyway. So And I was really hoping that, one day maybe I will meet some oligarch and, convince him to invest into space field. But it's harder here, getting better, because they see that the world going into the directions of private space.
Sure.
And they don't want to be left behind. So now they're starting it.
Yeah, I guess that the big jump could happen when we moved more towards space mining. I think, when we start conceiving the possibility. I know that this is very far away, but there seems to be a lot of resources that we can use that come from space, and maybe this will motivate, because obviously, like they say, follow the money, right? Like if you just drop the argument of exploration, it's like, okay, but how can I make money there? There is the option of space tourism, but I understand that this is in the realm of speculation, but there are projects about mining asteroids and things like that.
I think the most important thing is to have the ideology and to actually finally understand that space exploration, it's not about fast money return, and it's like fundamental science, and you never know how it will come back to you in terms of usefulness for the whole for Earth, for all people, and when in 1,000 years, in 10 years, you just have to invest there. Sponsor it, but not waiting.
This will take us to an interesting forest of conversation where I'm going to go right now, but there is a point here on priorities of spending, and let me explain this a bit better. There is so much information and reaction towards global warming that, hey, look, I am by no means denying that global warming is a problem and that it needs to be tackled. But I am on the camp of, man, look at the asteroids, because one little rock hits us and it's over in a second. Yeah. And the event in Chelyabinsk, for example, was a little bit of a reminder that this is there. And I'm sad sometimes when I realize and I feel that it seems like we're only going to start paying attention when a meteorite falls on a city and erases 1 million people in a split of a second. And that's a very sad perspective. Do you think that there are possibilities of this developing not in such a catastrophic way? Am I too fatalist about this?
No, I'm also the same. I'm being sometimes really sad about the way humanity behaves, that, we still put so much money into producing machines for the war.
Yeah.
And it's the budget for military budget is huge in every country, sure. Much more than for anything else. And I was like, wow, if we could put all this money and cooperation between governments, to science and space exploration, we would have definitely a better world that we, watching on in the movies, like a bright future. Yeah. And situation with pandemic now also show that we are nothing. Sure. Here it is, a small virus, and the whole world now is like, whoa. But if we had better science, if we had fast diagnostics, in terms of when they measure your temperature, if we had the same device but to measure if you're sick or not, if you have coronavirus or not in 1 minute, wow, then it will be so different. And same for space exploration. We can bring the whole hospital to Moon or to Mars base. So we need to invent diagnostic, medical diagnostic box where person can just lay down there and they will give you all the information, and then using robotics and maybe only one human as a doctor do all the needed things for getting better. And it can bring so much improvement into our world. So and it's crazy that they don't see it when they say, oh, why waste so much money on Mars? Oh, I got my cat here.
Oh, hello, cat. That's a great, that's the VIP visitor. Would you take it to Mars? Would you take it to Mars?
Yes, but cats are they actually we tested cats in space and they don't feel good there.
Of course.
Better for dogs because cat has different vestibular system than dogs. So yeah.
Look, if you want to get people interested in space, man, you need space cats. That's why people are not interested in space.
But if you have artificial gravity on a spaceship, then we can bring cats. So
look, so you mentioned briefly COVID, and we glide through the interview in the following way. Like, you spent 160 days confined in a point, right? Am I correct? In the Mars 160 mission?
Well, 160, it was divided. So we had 3 months in Utah Desert at Mars Desert Research Station, and then 3 months in the Arctic on an uninhabitable island. But because of the weather, we spent there only 1 month.
In the Arctic. In the Arctic.
Yeah.
In Utah, you were 3 months. In Utah, you were 3 months.
Yes, but my longest isolation, it was Sirius project. It's 4 months, and it's very super isolated because you actually don't see any nature, anything. You don't have any windows. You stay in a big tuna can, and so you don't get any sunlight for 4 months. You don't have internet connection. It's super isolated. You have your own atmosphere, your own a bit higher pressure. So all the bacteria won't get from outside inside. And so yeah, you stay for 4 months like that.
So for you, it was like, we have to do COVID quarantine, and you're like, ha, big deal. Done it. Of
course. Yeah, but I was surprised that all of a sudden I became an isolation expert, and now people take me even more serious, you know, and now they feel me, and because they're also doing this isolation, and they were asking me, how did you do that? It's so hard. I was like, come on, guys. You have a window. You can, go outside, maybe even for 5 minutes, and you can order any food.
Exactly.
And you have internet, and you can talk to wherever you want.
And still go down to the park, kind of, or in front of your house or something.
Yes, and I was like, we didn't have all this luxury. I was like, what? This is luxury? I was like,
did you? I mean, I'm pretty sure that in these periods of isolation, I'm not talking about the COVID one, you learned some important lessons about yourself. Do you feel that, at least in your world that surrounds you, that people learn important lessons in this quarantine that we just went through? Or do you think that it all kind of happened in vain in some way, like in terms of how our souls developed?
I think it's individual. It depends on a person. Sure. If he is reflecting what's happening with him, then it's definitely quarantine did. Oh, sorry, my cat is playing with, and it makes noise.
Your cat is a welcome guest to the podcast, so just give it the time. What's the name, by the way, of the cat? Tell me that you have a space name.
Yes, no, it's cat of my boyfriend, so he named him Taron. It's unusual name. Yeah. Okay. And actually, he didn't like me before. He was jealous. And now my boyfriend is jealous because this cat became my baby and he follows me everywhere.
That's so cool. So we're talking kind of like about quarantine in Sirius project, quarantine in COVID.
Yes, I think first of all, people finally had time to spend together. Yeah. I mean, like family.
Yes.
Because usually in urban, environment, they don't see much of each other. Yes. So they come only at home after work, say hi to kids and, kiss wife and etc. But in quarantine, then it all happened. As I saw in news that there was divorces or opposite, they, restarted the relationship, and it just showed that we, in this hustle of modern world, we just disconnect from each other, and we always in the phone watching stupid videos or it's so much information that you forget to be with yourself.
Yeah.
And the best thing that I had from isolation in my space experiments is the informational detox. Yes. That was the best. because we had all this noise, informational noise from everywhere, and it distracts you. You lose your concentration, and I think that's what we need to have, like as a therapy for many people, just to have like once in a month weekend without, your
without the phone. Did you found it hard once you got out of the isolation period, which was a very harsh one because you had no internet, right? And one question: did you had the 20-minute delay in communication with Earth, something like that, or was there like
no? I mean, with Sirius, we simulated moon flight, so
it was moon flight.
like 3 seconds delay. We had 3 seconds delay, but with Mars, we had some internet, but it was like really limited. We need to send our reports, and then we could post update on social media, and that's it. If we have internet left, then we can write an email to our relatives. But
were they giving you a bandwidth like you have 200 megabytes or something like?
Yes, and we definitely couldn't watch any video because in a second it will be all
it
gone.
Sounds like a dream.
Yeah. And delay, we we had delay, like we send a report to mission control and then they replied to us, not immediately, although they got it immediately, but they replied to us 20 minutes later.
Exactly.
So we've been learning how to, react to some situations that occurred independently, or not always waiting for instructions from mission support.
The train, I have so many cool questions, but I want to finish this train. The train where I was going is the Sirius project ended, and then you go back to the world. Did you felt like a intoxication of information coming to you? I guess the contrast was harsh, right?
Yes, it was harsh, and I was fighting it.
To try to have a new routine, right? To try to have a new routine, yeah.
Yes, but then after a month, it got me, and I was cutting myself on thought that actually I'm here looking on my phone and distracted when I actually has to do something more important.
Yeah.
And that was pissing me off.
Of course.
And I think we all have this kind of weakness. I don't know how, or it's addiction that we couldn't even notice.
It's certainly an addiction, and every single person who is trying to fight it finds a difficulty to do it. It's just really something that we did not consider possible when we signed in to live a life in social media. And then we have, going back to Elon Musk, we have a perspective of eventual brain interaction between our minds and the device, which absolutely freaks me out. I mean, it's like if we cannot control it now that the device is in your hand, how it's going to be? But that would be a whole different can of worms. So, okay, look, when I think I want to go to space, which I would love to go to space, I imagine that the only way I can go to space is if I have $20 million and I can pay for a space tourism or something. And I know this is a wrong conception and I want to disarm it. The other thing, when I think Leo wants to go to space, I want to go to space. The other thing I think is if I'm going to go to space, I need to be very fit and very powerful, in my body and in my thingy, or to have 20/20 vision and stuff, blah, blah. I understand that these are wrong misconceptions. How can Leo go to space if he wants to go to space, or Anastasia? I mean, what's the path for a civilian to eventually end up in the International Space Station, considering that you don't have any special gift? Does that path exist?
Okay, so now when we talk about the old spaceships that Soyuz one, now we are the only one who can bring humans to space station. And recently, finally, we have a new spaceship from Musk. Yeah. But the requirement for health is very strict.
Yes.
But when we had shuttle era, the requirements were much lighter, especially for eye vision and many different other aspects of your health. So more people passed and they could fly, and they had 6 seats in the spaceship. And with Soyuz we have 3, and Also because of the landing, it's the landing is harsh, and so you need to have a good health.
Yeah.
But with the Dennis Tito, the first space tourist, I mean, come on, he was what, 60, 70?
Yeah.
And for sure he has he didn't have health that cosmonauts have.
Yeah.
And he passed, and he paid, and flew there. I'm really hoping that we, with new technology and new spaceships, first of all, the landing will be safer. The how you say, перегрузки,
the load on the body, or you mean the load on the spacecraft as such?
On the body, yeah. So it also will be much less, and therefore you don't need to train as hard and to have all these risks. And also about the space tourism, I think if we have like really reusable spaceship, then it will be much cheaper. And I really dream that someday I will see it, and actually they would say, hey, we don't have enough cosmonauts and astronauts because we are building really this huge base, and we need more professionals, and there shouldn't be only military jet pilots or engineers. There should be also scientists, musicians, because a chef, because still if you live long on a moon station, for example, you need all these recreational things that usually people have, not to go crazy. So, and I hope that soon we will see that the world is changing, and it's not only for VIP,
Yeah.
Because now the price for space tourism is terrible. It's not 20 millions. It's 50 actually, 50 and getting higher.
Wow. Why it's getting higher? That's interesting. If there is already reusable systems, because we still don't have access to them from a touristic point of view.
Well, it's inflation, and also because since I'm talking about Soyuz prices. So since we have the only spaceship to get like astronauts and astronauts from NASA and from ESA, so it's really booked and packed, and they just put prices higher.
Look, who are for our Western audience who don't know nothing about the Russian space program, who are everybody knows Yuri Gagarin, right? In the world. Who are those like important figures in the Russian space program that you think people should know about? For example, you mentioned, I already forgot his name, and I used to know it, but I forgot what was the pioneer. Korolev, for example. Let's talk about Korolev for a second. Who was him, and why is he important for the history of humanity? Because he's important for the history of humanity.
Well, I think the main figures that we have here is, first of all, Tsiolkovsky. Yes, he is a theoretist, but back then, in the beginning of 20th century, he already explained what will be in space, how people will float there, and how could he know that there will be
when did he live? Tsiolkovsky, when did he live? Kind of like early Soviet times?
It's end of 19th century, in the beginning of 20th century. And he lived in Kaluga. So if you go there, it's a beautiful small city with a great space museum, and also the museum house of Tsiolkovsky. It's very atmospheric and interesting to know about his life. He was deaf after he had some sickness.
Wow.
And also he has many kids. He lived a poor life because he was teaching and into science, and people were like, all the neighbors were thinking about him as crazy. And
seems like it goes way back, right?
Yeah. and back then he like we have the space velocity, like he calculated
escape velocity, right? Like the escape velocity.
Escape velocity. So he calculated this like first escape velocity, second escape velocity, etc.
Wow.
And yes, and for me it's unbelievable how he could know that if we didn't send anything into space, and he already knew what will be how human will behave there, that they will float, and what kind of and his books are amazing, and all the drawings that he had actually portraying the space station on the orbit of the Earth.
Wow.
Okay, my cat. Hey.
Well, he likes Tsiolkovsky. He's a Tsiolkovsky fan.
I know.
What was the name of Tsiolkovsky? That was his last name, right?
Yes, it's Tsiolkovsky Konstantin.
So that's a good name for a cat, man. Konstantin.
I know. I don't know. He's getting crazy now.
So no worries about it. Just take it easy.
And so Korolev was inspired by Tsiolkovsky, and Korolev had also interesting life. He back in the Soviet times, he had hard times. He was in Taron. Sorry.
If you want, no worries. If you want, you can just take him out of the room or something, like if it makes you more comfortable.
Getting crazy. He has this, periods when he gets crazy and just like wild animals.
Look, cats can't go to space, so he's saying that this is discrimination. This is discriminatory talk.
I think he just wants my attention, and I don't give it to him, so he's getting crazy.
Of course.
Oh my God.
Maybe you.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Carry on.
I'm just looking in the dictionary the right word for when in Soviet times we had like Gulag.
Sure.
So Korolev was in this kind of prison.
Okay.
Yes, for actually not. I mean, he didn't deserve that.
Articulate.
Sorry?
Articulate. Like
Yeah.
Like I think it was called like this kind of like generalized, crimes that were not defined that will take you to Gulag anyway.
Yeah.
If I don't remember wrongly. Yeah.
And he almost died there, and unbelievably that after this experience, terrible experience, he was so still so patriotic, and he wanted to be for Soviet like the space program. He wanted to prove that we can do that, and so he spent all his energy and everything for that. And I think he is like Elon Musk, because it's all about also your charisma and the way you can actually tell to the government that it must be done and why it must be done. So he did a lot, like for the space.
Was he a rocket scientist, or he was, if I'm not correct? Yeah.
Yeah, he is engineer, and so. Unfortunately, his final goal was to get to Mars
himself. To make a Mars program. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes. So he was actually he didn't want to go to the moon. To build like spaceship for the moon. He was aiming higher to the Mars.
Yeah.
And it's so sad that he. Because of this some accident in the hospital, he died in the period when he was on a peak, and he could. Maybe if he didn't die, we would go to Mars.
Yeah.
Even 50 years ago, but unfortunately, in '65, I think it was '65, when he died, and so we lost the leader. And after that, we still had space program and space race, but not as big and successful as with Korolev. And when Elon Musk came up, I was like, wow, that's Korolev of our times.
Yes. Because he could inspire a whole generation, a whole world to move towards there.
And he showed a different approach. But it's so funny when first time he had the landing of the booster.
Yes.
there was a movie in '57, Soviet movie, when they had the same thing, showing that, and people like, whoa,
they could foresee it.
Yeah.
I once saw a fantastic documentary. I wish, in some podcasts there is always a guy next to the host which is Googling for you, and I wish I would have that now, my Jamie, like they say, but I don't have it. I will, maybe you remember, there is a fantastic documentary on Netflix which is about a rocket engine who was rediscovered in the 2000s by the European Space Agency. And I mean, this was about to make the long story short, where I really want to say is that there seems to have been, in the early times of space exploration, a difference between how Americans were building rockets and Russians were building rockets, in the sense that Russians were testing on the go and Americans were kind of like designing and kind of conceptualizing and then maybe discarding things before they were testing. And it seems like in the early times of the space race, Russia had a little bit of an advantage because of the way the problem was approached. And also, because there was a whole machinery of the state behind it, very aggressively pointing towards. But it seems to be that after Korolev, this kind of like impulse kind of like faded a little bit. Do you think it was all connected to his personality, or I guess maybe there are geopolitical factors in play too that added to this, or it was mostly about the Chalabievsky factor, like they say, like in Russia, like a personality factor?
Yeah, I think his personality and plus other thing is that back then Soviet was working on maximum in terms of financing space program. And so it also was really hard on budget. And maybe they said we can continue doing that, like at the same level. Same with the USA after moon space race. Then they also said, okay, we want to spend money now on something else, not on that. It's very expensive.
Yeah, I do have a feeling. I mean, sometimes I see what happening between the 70s and the 90s. I mean, the kind of the space shuttle era, like 80s, 2000 kind of. I mean, it's easy and I think simplistic to think that was some sort of like lost time. Sometimes to upgrade, I mean, the upgrade we did from the space shuttle to here has been gigantic. I mean, it's just people cannot see it so well because people see it like, it's the same. It's just a rocket that goes up and people come down. But like, I mean, how far we have gone in terms of improvements in safety, in efficiency, in the price as well, how much it has dropped, and also in the capacities that we have now are colossal. And also something that saddens me a lot, I guess you have heard the name Caroline Prioko. She was the imaging leader of the Cassini team, for example. And I remember her saying like, it surprises to me that, do you remember that photo that Cassini took that you see Saturn, the rings, and you see like, I mean, how come there was not a parade in New York City that day that photo was made? It's just really interesting. I really understand that people are on their day-to-day lives and it's hard to focus on the topic of space. But firstly, I think that they ignore how much of their day-to-day technologies they use come from the advancement of space exploration. And without that research, we will not have those advancements. That's first thing. And second thing, I just don't know why people are so boring that they don't get so excited about something like that. But that's another conversation anyways. So I don't think that there was this is a really amateur opinion. I'm not a journalist or something. I'm just an enthusiast. But I don't see this epoch as a lost epoch. It was just a pretty hardcore, difficult path of upgrade that took us to a moment now where it's like, okay, we can start again to dream. Is this a good picture? It seems like we passed the boring part. That's kind of in a short, or at least a big chunk of the boring part. Is this a correct way to think, or am I too excited about what's coming ahead?
No, I think we should be optimistic, and I think it's the only way to live, no matter how hard life is. Yeah. Like 10 years ago, for example, I remember what youth were thinking about. especially in Russia, because it was all like glamorous, spending money, earning money, and all about consumption. And now, way more young people interested in science and space, way more. Now it's actually a bad tone if you're glamorous.
Is that right?
It's in a trend to be smart, or at least look smart, and to be aware of all the technological news and space news and science news. So I'm really happy that it's happening. And what else is lost times? Yeah, in some way it's like that, because whenever I give a public talks, then young people come to me and ask me, wow, how did you find your place in this life? How did you find your passion? Because we are lost. We don't know what we want to do in this life. We are working as managers and like all good. We have salary and blah, blah, blah. But we don't have, eyes burning of ideas, and we don't have a work that we love.
Yeah.
And I met so many people like that, and it's quite sad because of this informational noise. Also, what society tells you, what all these magazines show you, this perfect life, how you should look, what should you do, and you get lost in that, and you don't hear your voice. So I'm happy that now, at least, we have more options. Now nobody would tell you you're a freak because you're creating a robot or exploring moon by pictures from satellites. Like my friend, he found the Soviet lander on the moon just using the pictures from satellites, using the database.
Amazing.
So nobody tells him, oh, you're a freak, and do something better.
Yeah.
So
there seems to be like a crisis of leadership in general in this time. I mean, with the whole ocean of information that we have in front of us, I mean, maybe there are the same amounts of leaders and the same amounts of brilliant minds, but it's so overwhelmingly vast amount of information that I guess that a good way to sort this out would be to give a bandwidth of data to people, like you had on the on your simulation of a space program. It's like you have 200 megabytes a day. Choose well what you're going to watch.
Yeah.
Look, let's talk a little bit about the projects you have been involved, and let's take it one by one. So I understand that the Mars Society, it's a very influential space advocacy organization, and this is pushed by a person called Robert Zubrin. Have you had the chance to meet him in person ever?
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, my story with Mars Society is quite unusual also.
Go for it. Tell us.
I met Robert by accident in Moscow. So he was giving a talk in Space Museum, and one of the organizers, they said, we need volunteer as a translator from English. And back then I didn't know who he is. But I just met him and his wife and helped them out. And I was driving, so I was like, hey, I can get you back to the hotel. I mean, you're alone in Moscow. So it was like a love from a first sight. We really got this connection with him and his wife, and he told me about that they have this new mission, Mars 160, and they now will look for candidates. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. And but I said, hey, I can't apply. I'm just a journalist. And he's like, what? That's bullshit. You can apply, because we don't need only engineers and scientists, but we need someone who inspire and who will write about that and show to the public why we should, do this. So he said, okay, try. We'll see how hard you want that. And I also, like in parallel with Mars One, I started to apply for this mission, and I passed to the final crew, and that was really one of the best experiences in my life. And I grew so much in these 3 months. It's crazy. And Robert is really inspiring. I mean, we need leaders like him with his ideas, with his passion. And he said about the resources that you are saying, that we'll run out of resources on Earth. He said, what a bullshit. Yeah. We are human. We are the resources. We create the resources.
Exactly.
When we didn't know how to, do the mining, we couldn't use those resources. And everything is about us. So we would create the new resources. And he's brilliant, man. And now actually starts Mars Society Convention online. Okay. And today Elon Musk is speaking there.
Wow.
And yes. And on Sunday I will give a talk there about my experiment. And also Jim Brandenstein, the head of NASA, will give a talk. And there are many more really amazing, interesting speakers and scientists. So
that's pretty awesome. So what happened in that Mars 160 experiment? You were flown to Utah, right?
Yeah. So we simulate that we actually landed on Mars and we explored the planet. Okay. We had, of course, limitations, but we could go out only in the spacesuits. It's a mock of the spacesuit, with like 14 kilograms. You just live life like a Martian life.
Okay.
And the main aim was find life on Mars. So we had microbiological research and geological. And I was there as a crew journalist and a health and safety officer because before going there, I understood that I need to have as much skills as I can to be useful. So I passed, I got to rescue squad in Moscow. I had all this education and exams. I passed, so I'm certified rescuer.
That's great.
And and I also, like, as a volunteer, once in a month participate in 24-hour shift, actually going around Moscow and helping people and animals. And that's really amazing.
That's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did that. We were looking for life on Mars. It's amazing, so interesting, especially the exobiology. And I was thinking, oh my, if I had more time, I would love to be a biologist. But who knows, maybe.
Yeah, maybe you have the chance to do that.
And we have all these microorganisms that survive in extreme environment. My favorite is Tardigrade. Tardigrade is an amazing creature, but we were examining the halophiles. It's microorganisms stuck in gypsum minerals.
Okay.
And we have a lot of gypsum on Mars. So scientists think that we could find definitely something there.
Cool. And what question? Like the journalist. Imagine that this, like you were imagining as if this mission was all actually happening, is the closest you can get to that. The journalist is given a task in the search for biological signs of life as well, like in this kind of like, okay, listen, you grab this shovel and you're like, yay, I can help. Or is the journalist kind of like, no, you don't touch anything because you don't know anything about biology kind of thing. You see, like...
Yeah, no, for sure. We had cross training. We were actually doing this because if something happens with our biologist, who will, back him up. And by the end of second month, director of this mission decided that I'm good enough to be assistant of our microbiologist.
Awesome.
In the So it's really great. I mean, that's why I'm saying that in these 3 months, I progressed as, in a years, I wouldn't have that. It's really, you wake up and you always learn, you talk to engineers, you fix things together. And in many ways, also as a human, as you like work on yourself to not have a bad temper when someone didn't wash the dishes or etc. It's always a work around this good atmosphere between crew members, and to respect each other, to understand each other, because also we had multicultural crew, and that's also complicated, but still it's more plus than minus.
And did they simulated any emergencies? Like one day, like beep 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 beep. Oh no, there's something happening, or it was all like kind of peaceful ride, theoretical peaceful ride.
No, there were emergencies, but not simulated.
They were actually
because we were quite in a remote area, and so we're very isolated, especially in Arctic. And if something happens due to weather conditions, the plane might not get there in a week.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful. And also in Arctic, we have polar bears. And so every time we go out doing EVA, extravehicular activity, which means in a spacesuit, exploring, one of us was in normal clothes, but with a gun, with a rifle. Yes. We were calling this person a bear watcher. We were switching, one day I was the bear watcher, another time another one. So, and also it's cold there, and we had just 2 generators working, and one time it broke down, and so if we didn't have the backup, that will be also fun. And there were many things when we had to fix something, and or running out of water or food supplies, and so you have to minimize and work with that. It's really interesting.
Yes, and I really like, I recently became super interested for some reason in Christianity, and I started reading a lot about ancient cultures and the development of Christianity all the way to the press and then things like that, and I came across with this funny idea that when you read, for example, that so and so was a shepherd, back then, you think nowadays about a shepherd as being a guy who is there just walking with a little dog and stuff. And I heard this cool idea, which was like, man, if they told you that Moses was a shepherd, it means that he could fight a freaking lion, shepherds were certainly not just some dudes that were there just walking with a little stick. In the past, you had to be this like superhuman in order just to survive. And something that I really like about the space program is that it kind of is designed to train superhumans. It's like you either are going to know about engineering, how to fight bears, how to be like this kind of ancient shepherd back in the present, who can do all this stuff. And that's pretty fascinating that if that's the type of human that is going to carry humanity forwards, it seems like we would be very well represented in other planets, because in the end, only the people who have that kind of like pioneering vision and strength will be the ones who go somewhere, right?
Yes, that's why I like this profession, because you have to be like we call it in Russian the human orchestra. Like
that's amazing.
You need to have many skills, and it's really and stress control. Like you don't have to panic.
Yeah,
like that's what also important and what my expeditions taught me.
Yes.
And of course, it's hard, to go back to normal life after you had this kind of like adventure.
Sure.
But I'm grateful that I work now in Institute of Biomedical Problems. That's this place also was created with the vision of Korolev. He wanted to have. They study space biology and medicine. So all the experiments dealing with how humans can survive in space are basically in our in our institute. And back in '67, we had the first ever like isolation experiment where 3 men spent 1 year in a small station. My God. And also it went great, was successful. Hard, of course, for them, but still. And since then, they're doing different experiments, like the one that I just finished last week. We had only in our institute and in France, we have this kind of equipment for simulation of microgravity. Basically, it's a big bath filled with warm water, and your body is separated from this water by waterproof foil.
Yep.
Kind of like foil,
hydrophobic foil or something like that.
Yes, and so you lay down there. They sink in your legs, like all your body except your head, and you stay there for several days.
You spend there laying. Were you laying, or could you move like in different angles, or it was mostly laying?
Well, you lay down there, but you can do this, but you can't really get up.
Okay, you can't get up.
They bring you, yes, they bring you food, they bring you toilet, and they take you out once in a day for a shower, and you have shower also laying down. It's funny. I mean, I never did that. It was really something interesting, and it's amazing. I mean, how your body reacts to this stress, because just imagine all of a sudden you don't feel a support for your body. You're like floating, and also the pressure of the water also presses your body, your legs. So there is what happens that all the liquid from your legs coming up here.
All right.
And to lower the pressure inside of the body, your system starts to get rid of the liquid. So in the first day,
it gets rid of the liquid by sweating or by transpiring?
No, by peeing. By peeing. Yes, and a lot. So in the first day, I lost 2 liters.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I think by the second day, I had 1.5 centimeters growth. Because of the spine, it decompressed, lost kilograms, and in general, your body starts to work differently, and your heart changes also the work, because it now works much better, more liquid, more blood to pump in and out.
So I guess that this experiment is repeated on Earth, because on space you don't have all the technical equipment that you can have here to measure these effects. So they were scanning your body upside down to understand the effects of.
Yes, for sure. I mean, we can. It's very expensive to bring anything to space.
Of course.
So that's why we need these simulations here to test as many things, as many risks that might occur, and also to test countermeasures for negative effects of microgravity. And that's what we are doing.
Look, and so your role in the, what's the name of the Institute of the place?
Biomedical problems.
So you're working with them. What kind of is your role there? Is that your usual work, like what you're doing daily? Like, are you working on their kind of like communications department, or are you working on the science department? Like, what are you doing there?
First, I came to them before Mars 160 because I saw the program, and there was nothing from Russia, like not even one research from Russia. And I was like, hey, like we need to fix that.
Yeah.
So I asked my friends with who I can cooperate, and they connected me with IBMP, Institute of Biomedical Problems. And since then we started to work, but first not so tight. And after my Mars 160 experiment, they really saw that everything is good. I work for their research quite good. So, and invited me to work for them. And awesome. I started as a junior researcher. But then after I got into Sirius, because it's also IBMP project together with NASA. Yeah. IBMP and NASA, they jointly are doing the series of isolation experiments. So there was 2 weeks, then 4 months where I participated. Next year we'll have 8 months with different crew, and then 1 year and 1 year more. After Sirius. Finally, I got my engineering diploma, and now I work as an engineer. And also, I'm helping with Sirius for 8 months, like working with choosing the candidates, and doing everything to improve this experiment and the isolation, like to actually have it as close as it can be to real space expedition.
Okay, so apart from the Mars Society, then you form part of the Sirius project, which is an endeavor of NASA, together with the
IBMP.
Yeah. and so this was a experiment of isolation as well, the Sirius project in particular, or the Sirius project is something, it's more like an international mission, right? That is based here in Moscow. Am I correct?
Yeah. The station where we spent 4 months is here in Moscow. It's isolation project. It's 6 crew members. But international because of international research. Like, for example, during these 4 months, we've been doing around 98 experiments.
Okay, wow.
And we had like experiments from France, Germany, America, Russia, Hungary, and many others. So, yeah, that's why it's international. Also, the crew is international. We had 2 crew members from States and the rest from Russia. This time, maybe we'll have more diversity.
Okay.
We are still choosing candidates.
Going into the international conversation, as the relationships between Russia and America seems to diverge a little bit in this present time, is this happening in space exploration as well? How do you feel the cooperation between NASA and Roscosmos and Russia and America and the European partners as well in terms of space? Like, is this getting colder or is getting hotter? I mean, when I mean hotter, I mean good, more activity. Where are we in that sense?
With Spacefield, we've been cooperating even since Soviet times with America. So it means that, fortunately, Spacefield tried to be as away from politics as it can be, and cooperate with the country that in normal activities like they wouldn't cooperate. So space and science, they forget about this, the collision. And now it's still like that. Of course, there can be maybe some, controversial aspects, but nothing so bad that it would stop cooperation, because we need each other.
Yeah.
That's why I love space. It's so hard, so difficult. So finally different countries understand that they need to work together to achieve something.
Yeah, it erased the barriers between countries. I mean, there are no frontiers there are frontiers, there are no borders in space, right?
Yes.
Look, there is a question I have always about, do you know the PBS Spacetime? Do you know this YouTube channel?
No.
Yeah, it's the public broadcast service of the USA. They have a YouTube channel called Spacetime. It's really cool. It's just about space and astrophysics. And they were pushing this movement, which is Occupy Venus. I mean, it's a little bit of a joke. It's like Occupy Venus, in the sense that in the opinion of that astrophysic who runs that project, there is a critical problem on the colonization of Mars, which is the effect on gravity on bone density. And I have always been interested in that conversation. I mean, the people who are thinking of colonizing Mars, what is being taken into consideration in this regard? Because it seems to be that living in a lower gravitational field can have very profound effects on the bone structure of people and how, about bone loss, etc. So, for example, our astronauts that live in the International Space Station, they come back with a lower bone density than before, and that's after 1 year in space. But then we're thinking about living 10 years in Mars. And I wonder what kind of conversations are happening. I know maybe this is a difficult question, and I don't know if you will have an answer, but that's the only thing that worries me about going to Mars. I mean, is the fact that can we really stay there longer than 10 years, or 20 years, without losing our bone structure? Have you ever heard something about this, or a conversation about this? And am I right, or is
of course. I mean, that's why. No, it's all correct. That's why we are doing the dry immersion experiment that I was in. Because, and also in a Sirius mission, we had special passive treadmill, which cosmonauts use on ISS to not lose bone density and not get muscle atrophy on the legs. Basically, you can stay like healthy. You will still lose it a bit, but you can stay healthy if you train a lot. So it's several hours per day training on this special treadmill, plus some supplements.
Okay.
And this is not the major problem that might occur. Mars has a very almost none of a magnetic field.
Yes.
That's much more risky problem for human, and we are studying this also. So we also started this series of experiments on the lack of magnetic field. So how it can affect human brain, first of all, and human body. So worry about.
Don't worry about that. Okay, so we're reaching close to the end of the conversation. I have a couple of questions remaining, and a couple of them from our audience that send them to our Twitter account. First, this is a personal question. What do you think is your favorite guess for where we will find life on the solar system first? What's your top spot of life in the solar system?
I think for sure it's Europa. I mean, Europa or Callisto, where you have, or Enceladus, where you have ocean, salt ocean and warm, for sure. But if you can get there, or our robotics, yeah. But I mean, it's also interesting that we latest news about Venus that they kind of found maybe the traces of some microbiological life. But yeah, I think it's most exciting is Europa, Titan, Enceladus. That's the really cool places to go.
And it seems like after what you've seen in the Utah desert, I mean, perhaps your expectations of finding microbial life alive in Mars right now are quite high, right?
Well, I think high because they found lakes underneath, and that's also amazing. So we need more advanced robotics to actually go there and dig in and find something. Yeah.
So the couple of questions I got from our audience are, what aspect of the training that you have done so far has been harder on you? That's the one question. So what do you find hardest in this path that you have walked through so far?
I think it was a hard switch from a humanitarian profession, like from being a journalist to be an engineer. And I'm still learning, and I don't have enough practice. So I'm still struggling to be a real engineer, to actually fix things or create things. So
So that mindset jump from Earth to space. I mean, more from a humanities profession to an engineering mindset, right?
Yeah.
Another of the audience questions, I asked it indirectly. It was your opinion about international cooperation, which is pretty obvious. And one of the other questions that I find really relevant, and actually this is my mom who asked that question, it was one of our audience members. It was, when you are choosing a astronaut or a candidate, what do you think is an important emotional aspect that you're looking for?
I think high motivation, not based on money or fame, but based on that, we have to explore and make something important and be a useful part of this huge scientific picture. And if you have motivation and sense of humor, then you can get through many other challenges, and you can improve. Even if you understand, I'm not like the best person to work with this crew member. We don't have enough connection, or we just don't like each other. But if you understand why and what for is needed to actually improve this connection,
cool.
Then you do that. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, I thank you very much for your time and for this conversation. It has been really interesting. I really hope to look up.
Great questions.
Thanks, and thanks to my mom for those questions. She's really great.
Yeah.
And I hope very soon I would be able to look up to space and think like, oh, there is Anastasiya. Come on, like, or maybe write you a message and receive a message from outer space. I always find it interesting that outer space is closer. I'm Moscow right now. I'm in the Moscow region. And I always find it interesting to think that outer space maybe is closer to me right now than Moscow, right? But it's so difficult to get there. And so, maybe
we will do podcasts from space. That would be cool.
That would be super awesome. The best result would be if we were both in space, and then I'm also interviewing you from there. That would be amazing because, of course, for me, it's a wildest dream to be able to go there and carry on humanity forwards. I thank you very much for what you do. You have inspired a lot of people, and I'm sure you will continue doing this. I would like perhaps if you can leave us with a message for somebody who has a dream like yours. What would you advise them to do, and what is a motivational speech there that we can leave them like, this is Sparta, come on.
Yes, hey, I was born in Uzbekistan, and it's so far from space, don't stop dreaming, and not only dreaming, actually trying. Put yourself in similar situations, and then you would understand better if it's really what you want to do in your life. Because one thing, if you're laying on a couch and thinking, I will be cool astronaut, and then you put yourself in a kind of like extreme and similar environment, and you finally understand, no, it's not my thing. It's all cool, but it's not mine. So as soon as is the better to when you understand what really is your passion and that you're happy to do that. And then if it's really yours, the whole universe will help you. Honestly, you will get opportunities one after another if you really do something from following your heart.
Yeah, and
always believe in yourself. Yeah, just believe in yourself no matter what society tells you, your parents, and etc. I know it's hard, but if you are confident of what you really want to do, don't listen to anyone else.
Yeah, and I wanna add to what you said. As a person who comes from Venezuela, and I have built, it's like the Uzbekistan of Latin America. I always come from nowhere, and I moved to Moscow. Well, I lived in London and in Budapest, and now in Moscow, and somehow I have managed to build a career in music, which is not an easy thing. So, and I really was very touched when you mentioned that there was this Robert Zubrin talk, and that you found that way to translate for him, and then you drove him home. Like, these are the cracks in the matrix where you can enter. It's not impossible. What you just have to be is very focused on finding those cracks and be 300% dedicated in your goal, as you said precisely, and identifying those cracks. Is Elon Musk coming to speak? You want to meet Elon Musk? Well, go to that conference. You never know. You just never know. If you stay at home, you never know. I once, for example, my wife is super inspired in doing film, and I told her, man, make a letter and go to press conference of your favorite filmmakers and give them that letter, But you're going to have to try a lot. And I think the best way to drop this podcast is like this. I once saw a very, very fascinating little clip. It was when the Apollo program happened. There was a person who was a migrant from Egypt who moved to the USA. And he is a geologist. And this was back in the 60s, so there was no internet. And he didn't had a job. He moved to the United States from Egypt, and he was starting his life there. And he narrates this story, which is like he sent 100 letters for trying to apply for a job. And the letter 101 was a letter to apply for a job in NASA as the geological recognizer of the topography of the moon, to train the astronauts on how to understand where is better to land in case there was an error. That was a letter number 101, and he got the job, and he ended up training the astronauts to analyze it. So I always say, man, if you don't send 100 letters, you ain't going anywhere. So
Exactly.
thank you very much. It's been really cool to talk to you. I would love to have you back again. Like, this is going to be a recurring thing. So eventually, when something else happening around in our world, you have the space to communicate it to the world. We're more than happy to have you here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great day, and take care of your cat there. He needs attention.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.